Hello students, I am Dr. K. Priyadarshini. I am Assistant Professor from Department of History. Today we are going to discuss about the topic Rural Indebtedness in British India. Learning objectives. The students will be able to understand the concept of rural indebtedness. What is rural indebtedness and how it is impactful in the Indian economy. Then assess the causes and effect on the peasantry. Identify the role of moneylenders and then know the impacts on the Indian economy. Introduction. This is rural indebtedness term is also known as agrarian indebtedness or agricultural indebtedness. This is a situation, it can be defined as a situation of the rural people who were unable to repay the loan accumulated over a period of time. Now, why it is called rural people and why it is called agrarian indebtedness is because most of the rural population are dependent on the agriculture. So, we are referring it as agrarian indebtedness as well as. Now, background. Farmers were prone to this rural indebtedness. Indian farmers, there is a saying, Indian farmers is born in debt, lives in debt and dies in debt. Why? Because we know the condition of the farmers since ages. They were considered to be, fulfill the needs and aspirations of all the people, like they are feeding us. However, their condition is always, depends on worse and poor. So, this is the saying for them. Indian farmers are born in debt, lives in debt and dies in debt. Now, poverty is directly proportional to the rural indebtedness. Now, what does it mean? Whenever the level of poverty increases in society, the level of rural indebtedness also increases. The burden of the debt is passed on from one generation to another. When farmers fail to repay his loan, he falls into the trap of indebtedness. Also, he became prey to the moneylenders. This rural indebtedness is one of the important issues in India. There are so many issues. However, this is one of the main issues in India. Why? Because of its features and impacts on the economy and society. Its impact and dimensions on the economic and social levels are very strong. It left very dark depths. The peasants were pushed to borrow money and fell into the trap of rural indebtedness. The peasants were not interested to borrow. However, there are certain causes, there are certain reasons which pushed them to borrow the money. Now, what are they? The farmers were not able to pay the taxes in time and they were unable to fulfill their debt obligations. Now, what are they? Let's see one by one. This is one of the farmer. We can see his condition. Okay, let's go straight into the causes. British economic policies. We know that British ruled India and they gave so many economic policies and social policies. Now, what are they? For example, commercialization of agriculture. It's a very famous one which opened the markets for the, opened the markets for Indian economy into the world. And then revenue policies. There were so many land revenue policies introduced by the British. Why I am taking these two examples specifically, these two policies specifically is because these are directly linked with our concept of rural indebtedness. Now, how the land revenue policies introduced by the British was for the reason to extract the maximum amount from the peasantry and from the rural people. Britishers needed those money, those investment for their British capital. Okay, that is not for the Indian economy, that is for their British economy, for the Britain economy. So, they were interested in the revenues and they tried their maximum level to extract it out of the Indian economy. From the rural populace, from the peasants, etc. So, the land revenue policies first introduced was permanent settlement, which is also called as zamindari settlement. It was between zamindars and the Britishers. That is, zamindars were to collect the taxes from the peasants and deposit to the Britishers. Of course, there is a share which he will keep it for himself. That is, zamindar will keep for himself. Now, this permanent settlement was a failed one. So, later they introduced the Rayatwari settlement. What is Rayatwari settlement? It is between the peasantry, peasants and the Britishers. Now, why peasants? Because the zamindars, as they accumulated money, they started to do the fraudulent activities. So, now the Britishers were not interested to give to the zamindars. So, now directly they are dealing with the peasants. So, peasants have to collect the tax by themselves and deposit it to the Britishers. This was also a failed attempt. Now, the third revenue policies, that is Mehalwari settlement. It is between the villagers and the Britishers. Who collected the revenue is the village headman. He collected the revenue and gave it to the Britishers. Now, all these revenue policies, the 3 revenue policies, settlements, they left a deep impact in the life of peasantry. They made the peasants into the condition of poverty. They pushed them to the condition of poverty. And commercialization of agriculture, see, poverty is the next cause. Commercialization of agriculture, that is another problematic thing for our Indian agriculture. Why? Because the farmers were forced to grow the cash crops, that is the commercial crop, and the food crops were decreasing on a larger scale. Now, ancestral debate. Like I said before, the debt which was borrowed by one farmer fell into the heads of his generation. If he fails to pay and he dies, whether it is suicide or whatever it is, that debt has to pass on to his son or, anybody, any of his descendants. So it pass on to one generation to another generation, lead to the trap of rural indebtedness cycle. Non-agricultural needs. Now, not all the loan he was borrowing for agricultural purposes. There were certain things which he borrowed for non-agricultural purpose also. Litigation. There are some land disputes between the farmers, with one farmers to the other farmers, and between farmers and merchants, between farmers and traders. So often these land disputes end up in the landless of the farmers. Agrarian backwardness. See, we followed in India, the agriculture was a primitive agriculture. That is, agriculture, the technologies were not very prominent here. So, agrarian backwardness and excessive tax burden. For example, I just explained about the 3 revenue settlements. There were nothing but excessive tax burden. For example, in the permanent settlement, the share was 1/10. Then when it came to Rayatwari, the taxes doubled. Then for the Mahalwari, the taxes doubled. Then money lenders. Money lenders, we will see how they play a big role in this rural indebtedness. Now, why they need to borrow? Income of the peasants is not sufficient. The farmers could neither pay nor repay. Eventually, they sold their lands. However, they are caught in a debt cycle. This trap is called debt cycle. Mostly, these debts were non-agricultural purposes. They don't generate income. Yes, we know that these loans don't generate income, and it made them unable to pay off the money. Now, money lenders. Let's come to money lenders. What is their roles? See, peasants were not able to pay the heavy land revenue, the excessive taxes, right? So, he depended on the money lenders for loan, and peasants borrowed money to perform their daily rituals also. And to repay the loan also, they used to borrow the money again. Now, their effects on the economy. Loss in productive efficiency. Like I said, the farmers were forced to grow commercial crops. So, this led to the deficiency of food crops. So, loss in productive efficiency, and those market crops or cash crops were exported to the Britain economy. So, naturally, it is leaving a vacuum in the Indian agriculture. So, eventually leading to the loss in productive efficiency. And transfer of land from cultivators to non-cultivators. This non-cultivators, here I am referred to the land ownership, private land ownership. These include money lenders as well. And terms of trade moves against the peasants. What does it mean? Earlier, before the advent of British, the peasants were directly involved in the trading activities. However, after the British captured here, they monopolized the trade and they were not allowing the farmers to take up the role. So, farmers were alienated from the trade. Now, loss of property. Since when they were not unable to pay the loan, they were forced to sell their land because that is the only property left for him. Then, eventually, all this led to peasant slavery. Agrarian servitude, peasant servitude, all these means slavery. This is another farmer. Okay, these are the killing fields. This is a survey. This shows the accidental deaths and suicides of India as per National Crime Records Bureau. This is in 2019. Okay, see, you can see the states which are referred and see the farmers and cultivators, how many of them lost their lives due to the worst conditions. This is another survey. Suicide by persons engaged in farming operations. This is nothing but they are explaining about the farmers only. This is a complete survey from 2015 to 2021. So, summary, the cultivation depended on the old methods lead to agrarian backwardness, and the yield, agricultural yield produced was not enough. So, farmers were forced to borrow the loan to meet their daily demands as well. And land disputes led to litigation. As I told, the land disputes between farmers and zamindars, between farmers and the money lenders, between the farmers and the landowners, everything lead to litigation. And natural calamities. Like I showed in the previous picture, you can see very well the drought, the condition of drought, the famine. The famine condition could be seen. This is like he is expecting for the rain. So you can see the natural calamities directly play a role in in affecting the rural indebtedness, falling into the trap of rural indebtedness. Okay. And other natural calamities like excessive rain is also a problem. So flood, famine, drought, everything impacted the farmer to borrow the money to the land, to the money lenders. And economic policies of the British. British gave various policies. Everything led to what? Exploitation of the Indian economy, especially Indian agriculture during this phase of British India. So to conclude, impoverishment of the peasantry, like I said, peasants were made to become slaves, agrarian servitude. Then growth of private land ownership. On the one hand, peasants were becoming poor. On the other hand, the private landlords, including moneylenders, merchants, traders, zamindars, they were becoming rich. So that inequalities was on a larger scale and eventually led to capitalism. Thank you, students. Now we are going to frequently asked questions. Now what are the frequently asked questions for this topic? Explain the importance of agricultural indebtedness. Here you have to explain the importance right from its definition, explaining its background and all, impacting. Interpret the role of money lenders in the colonial India. What was the condition of peasants after the coming of the moneylenders, and analyzing the causes and impact of the agricultural indebtedness. Then finally examine the revenue policy of the British and its effect on the Indian economy. Now the references I would like to give is Tirthankar Roy. His book is on Economic History of India 1857 to 1947, third edition, because it includes even the later period also. And Schrader Heiko, Money Lending and Rural Indebtedness in Colonial India. K.L. Sharma, Rural Society in India. This is a concised book you can refer to. And S.C. Ray, Agricultural Indebtedness in India and its Remedies. It comes under the forgotten books. See, this last book, S.C. Ray's book, gives a complete analyzation about the rural indebtedness, and he connects it with the commercialization of agriculture and later with the industrial revolution. Thank you.